Welcome to Corelight Defenders. I'm Richard Bejtlich, strategist and author in residence at Corelight. In each episode, we explore insights from the front lines of NDR, network detection and response. Today, I'm speaking with Vijit Nair, VP of Products at Corelight. Welcome, Vijit.
Hey, Richard. Thanks for having me on.
I'm glad you're here. This is a much anticipated episode. You are leading a program at Corelight called the AI Maturity Journey. Can you explain what that means for security teams?
When we think of AI capabilities, I really lay this along the spectrum, from a level one to a level three of AI maturity, right? So if I think of, on the far left is level one, which we phrase it as basic AI assistance, right? So you think of simple human-driven with LLM assistance, right? So you've got AI tools and LLM tools providing, basic explanations, rule correlation, and so on. As you move from level one to level two, you are, ceding more control to the AI and allowing the AI to operate with more agency, right? And the second level, I call that the level two, which is more automated. So you're going from assistance to automated, where the loops in the automated are more agent driven, but there is a human in the loop that is firmly still in control, but you're still having kind of swarms of agents autonomously go about their job. But the human is the final decision maker, right? And the human is applying the final judgment before making a decision, be it remediation and so on. And what allows you to go from level one to level two, it's really the data, the power of the data and the expertise that we apply on top of the data that allows you to go from level one to level two, right? Because a lot of organizations out there kind of applying AI, but without that foundational data, right? The context needed. And then the final nirvana is obviously level three, which is fully autonomous, right? So in fully autonomous case, now you've got autonomous agents that are orchestrated by humans, but that are fully independent. So you think of extremely high agency, extremely low control. And what allows you to go from level two to level three is you've got to build that trust, that confidence with the SOC analyst, with the security teams, and they've got to trust you. They've got to trust the accuracy that the AI tools provide, and that's it's a slow progression from going from level two to level three, whereas the users and the analysts, trust the systems more. They are willing to cede more control to the autonomous agents, and that's kind of the ultimate future that we are building to.
Could you tell me a little bit about what you would consider good data to be?
When I think of good data, it's really a few things that matter the most. The data has to be well structured, right? It's got to be designed for the purpose you're intending to use it for, and it has to be as comprehensive as possible. We analyze network traffic to generate the best data from it, and our data in some ways is the de facto standard in the security industry, right? So it's data that is built by security people for security people. It's unopinionated, judgment-free data, right? And the value of having unopinionated, judgment-free data is now you are using the tools to apply their judgment on top of that, right? If your data itself has bias, if your data itself has judgment embedded in it, then the tools kind of skew towards that judgment, which is why you want comprehensive and as accurate as possible data that allows the tools to apply judgment on top of that. The data that we've built, over time is something that the entire security community has built, right? The open source community over the last 25 years has built, this great form of data that becomes the foundation of a lot of our AI tools.
We have an open core system, and we like to talk about that in terms of the software that we run. But let's say you're someone who's using our data or data like it, and you decide that however that data is being used doesn't really meet your case. You can use that data and you can bring in your own LLM or your own analytical methods or whatever, and you can possibly come up with a way that works better in your use case. But if you're using a product or a source that doesn't provide you the data and just provides you the judgments at the end of the day, and you don't like those judgments, you're kind of stuck.
Yeah, you can extend the data that you generate, you can extend it in a lot of ways, right? So it's not only open core, the data is openly available for everybody to use. The data is openly available for everybody to modify, right? So we've got customers, we ourselves do it. We've got customers that add a lot of context and a lot of enrichment to the data. So you'll add like information about hosts, users, vulnerabilities, like network subnets, and so on to the data. That makes that context extremely rich. All the foundational LLM models out there are already trained on 25 years of security professionals using Zeek and using Suricata and using all these open source tools and investigating security incidents with these open source tools. So in some ways, the LLMs have that inherent advantage that we can lean on pretty effectively.
Do you have any advice for people who are, say, using LLMs with data like ours or our data to make sure that you're getting what you hope from it?
There are a couple of things you have to keep in mind. The economics and the cost of it is absolutely important, right? Like there is, you can go, to the extreme of sending a lot of real-time data to the LLMs, and that may not be as useful. The other thing to guard against is, people call it hallucinations, but I really call it the non-determinism of LLMs, right? And it's important to, especially in a place like cybersecurity, where the result of a false negative is so high, it's important to guard against that non-determinism or hallucination. So think about how you might apply guardrails around when you're interacting with these LLMs and throwing data at these LLMs. What are the guardrails you'll put in place, right? So what kind of verification will you do for each of the answers that the LLM generates? For example, one of the things we do is we've got agents that will pull in the alert, pull in the context of the alert, and go through a structured investigation run by the agent. But we'll have another agent that actually checks the work of the first agent, right? And both of them operate independent to each other, and that gives you sort of the checks and balance or the guardrail that you need to put in place when you're building these kind of systems.
Can you talk to me a little bit about integration?
Absolutely. In a lot of ways, AI lowers the barrier of integration. In the past, right, integration between tools used to be, a very rigid API with, very specific, interface definition that could change over time, that could drift over time, and you've got to constantly keep the tools updated to make sure they talk to each other. In the AI era, that barrier has been lowered quite a bit, right? So now the interface between AI tools is just human language, right? So MCP, for example, has come up as a really good example of how different AI systems can use the MCP server and tools exposed by the MCP server to access other AI systems, and that's sort of how we are approaching it as well. Is We've got our MCP server product in preview right now, where we allow our customers that are building their own AI tool stack to come access our data, right? And you can come access our data using simple human language. So, for example, if you have an EDR system where you're investigating a certain IP address, you might want to know, everything there is to know from a network standpoint about that IP address, and you can use our MCP server to go query, our data repo on, hey, tell me everything you know about this IP address. Tell me all the other hosts it talked to. Tell me all the services it talked to. Tell me all the data that was exchanged by this. And you can ask a human language question in the course of your investigation and get a human language response from our product. So that becomes, pretty powerful. One of the ways we are showing that integration or showing the capability is with our latest integration with CrowdStrike's Charlotte AI within their Fusion marketplace, where essentially Charlotte's AI tool, just in the way I described it, in the course of an investigation, can reach out to our AI system and get access to the data that it needs for its investigation, right? And I believe this is going to be the future. Not just other AI tool, not just AI agents talking to other AI agents, but in general, customers are building their own AI stack, and they will want, similar interfaces with all the tools that they have in their ecosystem for AI to be able to talk to, for their AI to be able to talk to the AI in the vendor tool ecosystem.
So when you look ahead, is it difficult to create a product roadmap when the technology seems to be evolving so rapidly?
This is a constant challenge, right? I see it as an opportunity, right? As the AI systems, I see it both as an opportunity and a threat. The threat, I kind of articulated earlier is in some ways, when attackers are moving faster than defenders, that's a threat for all of us as a community that we need to step up to. But I myself see, the coming in of AI as a huge opportunity for us and the cybersecurity industry, right? Because if you think of what the industry has been struggling with, for sort of as long as I've been here, it's been a huge increase, constant increase of surface area, right? Your surface area continues to increase with cloud and now AI. The a lack of skills in the industry, right? So not that you don't have highly skilled people, but you don't have enough. So that's a constant challenge. And AI, in a lot of ways, is a great leveler. It lowers the barrier to entry for new professionals to come into the space and understand it, right? So you don't need decades of experience. Just like you were saying, you could use AI as a assistance, a tool, a co-pilot that helps you, ramp up a lot faster than if you did not have it, right? So it lowers the barrier to entry for a lot of new people coming into the industry.
I used to think that there would be a threat to sort of the entry level work, but I think about the way so many teams are structured, and I never structured my teams this way, but I've seen plenty of other places that do, where the entry level work was so mind numbing and so boring. I'm not sure who would want to do it, and if they did it and they stuck around, like I'm not sure that's even the right kind of person I'd want to stick around because they're just sort of mind numbingly clicking buttons and doing work that is not fulfilling or interesting. And that should be automated away because it's not even really security in my opinion. It's just sort of low signal management type work. So to think about someone who could go in as an entry level person and yet they're doing something that's more complex and meaningful and they're equipped to do it because they have essentially an assistant who can help them make sense of it. I think that's a way more fulfilling career track for an entry level person. So I think we just have to think in different terms of what entry level people do versus not doing.
Yeah, 100%. And this is true across the industry, right? We are seeing this play out in the software development industry right now, where, entry-level folks are now armed with tools like Cloud Code and so on, with capabilities that far exceed what, a typical entry-level person would have. And the value I see in the software development industry is now you're just going to see a lot of amazing software getting built and developed and shipped, right? Way more than it has been in the past. Like in the past, you could have a great idea, but your barrier was finding the technical skills to finding the people with the right technical skills to go build the right products. But now that that barrier has dramatically gone down, now, a lot more great ideas, I expect will see the light of the day because that barrier for innovation has dropped. It's a similar kind of analogy to the cybersecurity industry as well.
Yeah, I think the work is going to shift, and in some cases is shifting away from the bare coding into project management, architecture, testing, validation, vulnerability discovery, all these sorts of other areas. The actual delivery of the code is just one part that I think is getting eaten by AI. But there's a AI developer who uses Claude, who makes my favorite Windows debloating software, and it's not him just telling the AI, oh, I want this. He has to do so much architectural work to make sure it's doing what he wants it to do, and the project management, and it's like he has a whole team that has to do all this work, and he's the supervisor for it. That I think is what's really interesting. It's allowing people who have a vision, but it's not just simply, oh, AI, go build me this. There's so much other work that needs to be done that is part of traditional software development, but maybe it wasn't as, I don't know, as glamorous or maybe even seen as that relevant.
When I think of a typical software engineer or SOC analyst or even product manager such as myself, right? I typically think of our roles as a combination of craft and art, right? craft is the sort of, the sort of the grunt work that you had to do in the past, right? Like in code development, you have to, manage your repos. You've got to, write your requirements. You've got to, write your functional spec. You've got to communicate with people, and you've got to build the code, debug, test, right? Like all of that undifferentiated stuff. And the art is, and same in the cybersecurity space, like you were saying, right? The tier one analysts have to do a lot of the grunt work to go through a lot of chaff to find the threats or the alerts that really matter. But if I think of the art piece of it, that's where your expertise, your judgment, your creativity, all that comes in, right? And unfortunately, in the past, most of us spend 70-80% of our time on craft because the data that we need is all isolated in different silos. It's not easy to go access to the data. So now you're working across a bunch of databases, joining and stitching stuff. When the playbooks are sort of all over the place, you don't have enough context about your environment. So we used to spend a lot more time on the craft and a lot less time on the satisfying work, which is the art, right? Again, like I think we're kind of saying the same thing is with the advent of AI eating, I think, AI comes in to eat the craft so that people such as us can focus a lot more time on the art, right? And that's, I think, the real distinguishing piece of AI.
Yeah, and if I could give a shout out to one of my favorite YouTubers, Bash Bunny, she did a good video recently. It was exactly about that differentiation, the craft and the art, and she reminded viewers that for some people the craft is the thing that they're there for. You think back to these legendary programmers like John Carmack or someone who devised these amazing new ways to do things for video games that no one had ever done before. That was the accomplishment right there. The fact that he was able to figure out how to do all these different algorithms and all that sort of stuff. So I think that might be where some of the friction comes from. There are people who really do prefer the craft versus the art. But it is nice as someone who is more on the art side to be able to solve some problems that I've had thanks to using these tools. Vijit, I was so glad that you could join us today. I know you're on the way to the annual security show that everyone knows as RSA. So thank you for joining me.
Excellent. Thanks so much for having me, Richard. Really appreciate the time and appreciate the chance to reach out to your audience as well.
Thank you for joining us on the Network Defenders podcast, sponsored by Corelight. We will see you on the network.
You've been listening to Corelight Defenders. To stay informed with expert intelligence on today's cybersecurity challenges, please subscribe to ensure you never miss an episode. We'll see you on the network.